like this is similar to the situation going on in like Israel, Gaza, right? You've got there's this sort of like unwritten rule or sometimes written rule of like engagement, even in war, or like or of your civilization. Like, what are the values you hold, and like you fight within those like kind of core civilizational values. And then one side is just like, no, we're opting out of that. We're going to fight you with any means necessary. And then you have this now nasty decision, which is like, do I stand by my principles and fight? And I'm trying to do this, and now I'm losing because like I'm fighting with like two hands tied behind my back. And then there's this growing pressure from people who support you to be like, fuck those people. Don't play by your, like just play by their rules now. And that's kind of what's happening here in the immigration front, unfortunately, I would say.
I don't know.
Dude, okay, so I think it's easy to like to look at the way it's being done and be like, this part of it's bad. I think it's much harder to be like, what would you do instead? Like, there's no easy way to like uphold the law in this regard. You know, like I think I understand it because like when I lived in Australia for 1 year, there were people that were they were like doing the same thing. We had a 1 year visa. They were like trying to extend their stay. And the Australian government was like, okay, after a year, we're going to deport you. And like people got deported, and that's okay. Like, because that was the rule. I think like we understood that's like the rule we're playing with, and the people that wanted to extend their stay knew they were sort of like being against the law on that one. And then when they got deported, it's like, that's fine. So why is it like so egregious to uphold the laws that exist? Like if you don't uphold the law, then there is no law.
Yeah, and like to the point about like everybody does this kind of sob story with like, oh, this person has the family and everything. And it is like sad. It is very fucking sad. In every other law in the country that you break, every other law in the country that you break, if you break the law and you have like to go to jail or something, you can't be like, oh, I have kids. Everybody goes like,
okay, but let me
bad.
I typically find myself in your guys' like chain of thought, but let me give a counterpoint to that. Like in an agreement, you know, if one side doesn't enforce it over the course of 10 years, is it no longer violating the law? So as an example, someone comes over illegally, they find themselves getting a social security number. They use it to get a job. They pay taxes for multiple years. They live there. They're not violating crimes. Let's say it's 10 years have gone by, and now, like, you know, we're enforcing the law and going back 10 years. Like, whose fault is it? Is it the individual's fault, or is it the government's fault for being like, well, we kind of like let you come part of this society, and you got a government ID and a driver's license.
The government's fault for not enforcing it the entire time,
right?
And then all at once enforcing it.
And that's where I'm like, okay,
yeah, but the same thing. I mean,
so it's not as in that case, it's not as simple as me like, well, the law's the law. Like it's like, well, we kind of like,
well, you
embedded them into.
They were allowed to do it for a time, but then now you enforce it. I'm reminded of the steroid era in baseball. It's like you stopped enforcing the laws, but eventually you're like, okay, you can't do steroids. We all know this. And then all those guys that were using steroids were like, wait, you didn't.
That
care.
equivalent for me is the criminal versions of these people who have entered illegally.
Okay, but you as a business owner, if you ran let's run a business hypothesis here. You run a business, you have like 10,000 employees, and you guys do really well, and then one day you sort of start drifting, you get a little soft, start partying too much, go on too many vacations, and then you start enforcing like these sort of elements of your business, and then 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 of your 10,000 employees suddenly become like useless, right? And and then your company is suffering, things are going by the wayside. As a business owner, like you wouldn't go in and be like, oh, you know what? Like I allowed you all to do this by not enforcing the rules, so I'm just going to let you all remain in the business and we'll work around it. No, you would just like fire everybody. You'd be like, no, it fucked up.
It wouldn't be that clean. It'd be like, fuck, we fucked up. So like y'all got nice severances, but like, yeah, you're gone.
Yeah, you wouldn't just amnesty your whole company because like you would understand that the company would just cease to function.
Yeah, so the equivalent of this in my mind is like, here's an amnesty pathway. Like here's the qualifications. You've been here for 10 years. You've worked, you paid your taxes.
And set up some kind of tier system of like who we need to get rid of first. And the ones that maybe we want to keep that have been here for 10 years that have contributed, give them a pathway. Like there has to be some nuance.
Well, it's
I think
just, like, you can't just drive around and hit a
amnesty is a
quota.
good idea. We couldn't do amnesty before because, like, if you do amnesty while the border's still open, you just incentivize
Exactly.
more people.
That's
to
a
come
good
in.
point.
But if you completely
Yeah.
shut down the border, you close it, and then you go, "Here's what we're gonna do.
Now we're going to deal with
We're
what
gonna
we
throw
have.
everybody who's a bad dude way the fuck out, and we're gonna like put him for some process to amnesty." I think it's a good idea. Like, I'm in favor of that. Step one, though, is you have to shut down the border,
which is done. That's
which
done.
is done.
I think so.
So look, like I don't like agree with everything that's
Look,
happening
at the
right
end
now.
of the day, like
I don't.
the world is going to speak for itself and people are going to speak for themselves. The reaction we're seeing, if we assume it's organic, is speaking for itself. There's blowback occurring and civil unrest as a result of the treatment of
There is, but like there is
in the
majority
country.
support in the country still for what's happening, and
there's
you are
majority
seeing
support is the most popular like thing I've seen in a long time to close the border and
Yeah.
to not allow like 100%. I was in on it. Everyone I know was started to become even like left leaning people that I knew were like, it makes sense. I get it. We need to do it. How you do it, you got to be a human about it. Like you got to be human about everything. You got to be human. Like there's laws. There's abortion. Abortion is a very blurry, nuanced topic. There's so many analogies to this that the law is evolving, and it's a debate and it's a discussion and about how you approach it.
But
And
even the blowback, though, the blowback is what? People lighting Waymos on fire, waving Mexican flags on
Well,
top
we
of them,
can- no,
throwing
let's go
bricks
to
through
that.
Yeah,
windows.
let's
go to
Like,
that.
that's not
I mean,
even.
that's- no.
It's not like real blowback. Like,
Okay, so
if that's your blowback, then
yeah. The
I
whole
think
thing
everyone's
is like
happy.
a giant political ad like for Trump right now.
I
You
agree.
know, it's
I
kind of-
agree. And
I'm more against how the blowback than I am how people are being treated. Like that is even worse.
yeah, I was curious. What do you guys think? Like one of the toughest parts of this, speaking of like what's real, what's not, is I'm trying to figure out who's rioting. And I have like I haven't researched this. My guess is that it's actually potentially the bad people that we want out is one group. And then on the other side, it's like actual American citizens who like to do the virtue signaling. Right. So it's like those two somehow find themselves
always
in the
find
same
each other.
camp.
But there's also just naive people, I think, who just get
Okay,
sucked
yeah,
into stuff.
I would probably lump them in the same camp, like naive, virtue signaling, and then
Yeah.
actually bad
And then
people.
the people
Like,
that like make signs, like the
Those are the virtues.
and then potentially
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
like
significance,
you have like political optimizers, operators who are like, well, this would be good for us if they did this, and then like enablers, right?
Yeah.
To do for their own means. So those are the groups that I think are there. The groups that I don't think are there are the people who you just mentioned, like the mother and father who are separated and who have
Shit.
been like following the
Living their
rules.
lives.
And like, I actually don't think they're there. One, because I don't think that they'd be the type to like go and light cars on fire because they're
well, first of all, you put yourself in harm's way by going there.
yeah. So that's what's kind of messed up about this, and it's tough to figure out because like how I feel about it is determined by like who is actually doing these things, and I can't imagine that the people that we'd actually fight for, like if you knew someone who was in this camp who was about to get shipped off, and you'd be like, whoa, this person is not the type of person you should ship off.
right.
I don't think they're there. So I find little empathy and sympathy for them getting cracked
agree.
down on.
What the people that are fighting against this treatment need to get right is that you don't fight this by like supporting your like personal like nationality and ethnicity and where you're from. You don't do this by raising a Mexican flag. You actually accomplish this by saying, I am an American, and here's why I deserve to be here, if there is a reason that you can argue for. You do it by being America first. You don't do it by the irony of leaving Mexico and coming here and then raising a Mexican flag and saying, I'm not leaving. That is what some people are finding very ironic and struggling with, and doesn't make sense to people outside of the bubble of like the protesters.
I agree with that, but like even within like the right, there's this like built-in hypocrisy because like I agree with the flag thing, but like I also agree that like everybody shouldn't like we shouldn't be like waving like Israeli flags and stuff either. Like it's fine to wave an Israeli flag, I think, in isolation, but like the same people who are like pissed off that people are waving Mexican flags on burning cars, are like totally chill with like a different group of like white people like waving Israeli flags, and like it's okay to be like really really like pro Israel and like Israel first, but like it's not okay to be like Mexico first. I think like it's fine to support the country you're from, but all of that should be like a very strong backseat to
It's
like
a secondary.
America. It
It's
should be
like these huge marches in Germany of like,
yeah. But that should be like a universal standard. Like I like
Yeah.
that's like a thing that
what
annoys
I'm
me
saying.
right now
Yeah.
about like the right is weird because there's like half the right doesn't like the Israel thing, and like half the right is like super like philo-Semitic. So there's like kind of like this subdivision between like all of the political parties. Like it's a weird time. Like it's not like left right anymore.
Yeah,
it's like
not.
right, and then there's 4 factions on the right, and then there's 4 factions on the left.
Well, as somebody
So it's a
who's like
complete
zoomed out,
clusterfuck.
I'm like zoomed out from most of this stuff, but I feel like the flag that's getting waved that's not American is like constantly changing. Like it was the Ukrainian flag not too long ago, and what you're saying it's the
There was
Israeli
a
flag,
Palestinian
flag, like Mexican flag. Like, is that just one of the constants? Is that like there's always some like stand that Americans, I guess, are taking where it's like, oh, this.
Okay, so like one of the things that annoys me about one of the things that annoyed me about like BLM and that annoys me about this is that there's like a large group of people using the sort of whatever the thing is to mask like the true motivation of what they want, right? So like under BLM there was like the George Floyd stuff, racism, but actually like a huge swath of what underlay like that was like actually just like it was just like anti-Western civilization, anti-America, right? And then you have this like thing that is this sort of like proxy for you to kind of push that agenda in the back door. And it's the same thing here in LA. Like I have no doubt there are a lot of people who are just genuinely interested in like the issue at hand. But I think there are these like interest groups that are fundamentally like anti-America, anti-West that I think are like fomenting these things. And they're using this as like a wedge issue to push like a larger anti-capitalist, anti-Western agenda. And that is the thing that
Are you talking
have a
about
problem
domestic
with.
forces or non-domestic forces?
Both.
Both.
Like I definitely think like look, this is like very obvious. Like if you're like the Chinese or the Russians, like you don't think you're like nudging this a little bit? Like you don't think you have like some front group there and you're like giving them money for bricks or something? Of course you are. Like you're so fucking naive if you think that's
Yeah.
not happening. But like that is intertwined with a bunch of people like legitimately protesting on their own, like of their own volition, like not knowing that they're a part of this like complex network of like foreign actors or something.
The foreign actors, it's like, okay, I get why they do it. Like their incentives are aligned. They totally makes sense they're doing it. The ones that I find most interesting is like the domestic ones. Like even the mayor of LA was kind of like continue to protest against this, almost to be like, no, keep going, because we want to show them, as in them, the federal government, that like we're not okay with this. So do what you can to get in the way of these ICE arrests, deportations, and keep going. And that was like, it was kind of mind blowing to me. Like granted she disagrees with it. She has an agenda, but that seemed to be like the one path you don't want an American mayor to go down, which is like encouraging citizens to just be, human blocks of like federal policy.
Karen Bass is a good example of that. Like Karen Bass like doesn't like America. Karen Bass doesn't like
Karen Bass,
capitalism.
LA mayor.
She's like
And I didn't say that, but that's
like,
what I was thinking. Is she doesn't like it.
anti-capitalist, anti-Western, anti-colonialist, like just doesn't like all that shit. Like all of these issues that come up are just like means to an end of pushing like an anti-capitalist, like anti-Western, anti-American agenda. And I think like people like me want to stand up and be like, look, America has problems. Like, yeah, we've done a lot of bad shit. There's a lot of problems with America. But like fundamentally, this is like a great nation. It's a great system. And on balance, it's produced like an enormous amount of good for the world. And like people here have like rights and freedoms that have like never existed in like the entirety of human civilization. And it's something that's like worth protecting. And I just like hate seeing it undermined.
Here's how I think I know she's anti-American, or let's just call them she's not constructive in this because she has all the limelight, right? Literally the world is looking at Los Angeles. And if she had a constructive motive, she would use it to push the policy. Like she would use like the BBC, every network in America to be like, what I want is an amnesty program, and here are the criteria, and this is what I want to do. And every single fucking time she went on the news and made a statement, she'd update, but then push the like policy change. And like, I haven't seen any of that. Maybe I missed it, but like, that's how I feel. Like, I know she's not constructive in this. She's a destructive force, and she thinks that's progress.
Yeah, and I just think she's legitimately just fucking stupid.